I am a journalist, but I feel, as the topic of my talk says, abandoned, because nobody wants to sort of carry these stories anymore. Because people want to talk about trends, people want to talk about what young people want, what will drive advertising. But when I was doing my journalism, I think they said that a journalist is supposed to make sense of the world and of the society that we live in. So I didn't choose these stories, they came to me, and it was not by chance or by accident that I found myself among the abandoned people. I think it was, I think you stumbled upon them, and then I think also in writing you have a sort of subjectivity where you, despite however hard you try, you will end up with the same kind of people, trying to explore the same kind of stories. I remember once when I was in my magazine, my last job, my former editor said that, for 6 months you should only write happy stories. And I thought I should write about fashion. And then of all the designers, I chose people who liked concepts like abandonment or androgyny or, things like that. So basically, all I'm trying to say is this, journalism is also very subjective. What we see today doesn't make much sense of the world we live in, of the people we interact with or don't interact with. I think we need to look at things more closely. So for instance, I don't want to get into the debate where prostitution should be legalized or not legalized. I'm not an expert yet. All I'm trying to say is that I believe in journeys. I think you want to get the experience. When I became a journalist, I only wanted to pay my bills because I couldn't do anything else. And not because I wanted to change the world, because that would be too much of a task. I only wanted somebody to fund my travels so I could go and write my 400, 500 word stories and then use the rest of the time to understand. I think I was just very curious from the beginning. The photos that you see are actually, most of them are eunuchs, and they are from gully number 1 in Ramabai Chaul in Kamatipura. So I had gone to do a story on adoption by eunuchs, just to break the stereotypes where people think that eunuchs or prostitutes adopt children to push them back into the trade. But this wasn't so. There's actually a mythological story as well, which goes back to Ajmer Sharif, where they have a shrine that is dedicated to somebody, a saint. They don't take the saint's name, but it's called Maji. And basically the story goes like this, that there was a hijra who was trying to climb the mountain to go to this other shrine. And there was a woman who was struggling with 4 children or 5. In any case, one child was really small, and the hijra offered to carry the child for the woman. The woman was appalled, and she said, "No, you are a hijra, you cannot carry the child." And the hijra was very hurt, so he prayed to the saint, to asking him if he could be pregnant. And his wish was granted, he was pregnant. And this may not be real, it's just what they believe. So what happens that he gets pregnant, but he didn't ask for the saint's blessings to be able to deliver the baby. So he was in utmost pain. I think it was the 10th month of his pregnancy, where the pain became so unbearable that he had to cut open his stomach. And the legend has it that the face of a small child was seen, and both of them died over there. So a shrine was erected to commemorate the memory of the hijra that had died. So every year during the Urs, all the hijras, most of them, they collect the earnings of the whole year and go to the shrine and basically stay there for almost 10 days. Because I think motherhood is very important to them. Things that we cannot do or things that we don't have, I think, are most dear to us. So that led me to a few of those stories. What fascinated me was the fact that you could find contrasting emotions that you could never sort of feel would exist in certain kinds of places. Like I covered prisons for some time, and I thought the whole feeling of freedom was more in a prison than anywhere else, because your mind is a free bird. You are not distracted by gadgets or by all kinds of modern life dilemmas. So, and in brothels, I thought when I went there, I was struggling with a lot of my own sort of questions, where I wanted to understand what love and what loss meant, and how you could reconcile the two emotions. And when I first went to Kamatipura, it was not by design. I again had gone to Malwani, and somebody brought me here. And I met Zeenat Pasha, the photos of who you saw, one of the people. And she runs that brothel. And then she started to explain to me over a course of few months, or almost like 2 years, about how their lives are and how they celebrate such lives. One of the most interesting things that I found was that this huge misconception that brothels are places of sex. It's not true. I think brothels are places of a lot more. I don't know how many of, I think a lot of people are aware of the term BDSM, which means bondage and sadomasochism. But here, it was not based on consent in terms of how you've heard in 50 Shades of Grey or any other book, which obviously belittles the whole concept of BDSM. But here, it was all money. It was all transactional, in a way where they told me many horror stories about what people come to do to them, including urinating on them, or beating them up, or stubbing cigarette butts on their bodies and stuff. But they would always laugh about it, and they would say that at least we got the money in the end. And so basically, I tried to understand what makes them do this and still survive, because I mean, there's no more violation you can go through than of your soul and of your body. So that's how the journey continued, and I call it abandoned only because of the fact that these were the people who had been abandoned by the society, by their families. They couldn't go back because most of them were dying with HIV/AIDS. Most of them, there's the stigma of being a prostitute. But they had lovers, and they would stay upstairs while the prostitutes themselves went downstairs for what they called dhanda. 2-3 things I wanted to talk about was, as a journalist, most of the times we tend not to share our own stories. I think we forget that we are at the mercy of people who we go to ask for stories, because we are not offering them anything except for maybe publicity. But publicity in these places mean nothing, because most probably they're not even going to read these articles, or not going to even see what was published or whatever. So they basically operate on the basis of trust. And in order to gain that trust, I think a journalist also must open up. In the beginning, when I started going there, I was very repulsed by the brothels, and I couldn't have chai over there. And then I felt very bad about it, and I thought that they live there, and I'm going there to ask them for their stories, and they're letting me in their lives, and I should at least be decent enough to not say no to whatever they're offering. I also think that unless and until you have broken bread with people that you're writing about, you cannot get to the real story. I don't think we can ever get to the real story, but the closest that we can. There's nobody absolutely that cares about such stories, which actually debunk a lot of myths about people. Because when I was a very young child, I think I was going to school, and on the way to the bus stop, I saw a hijra for the first time. He lifted the skirt, and I didn't know what I saw. I think I saw nothing, and I think it terrified me. It was just, how you stare into a void. And I didn't know how to ask this question, because, it was almost like a forbidden thing. You knew what to ask, and you didn't know what to ask, sort of thing. So later on, when I went to the US to study, I came in contact with a woman called Frances. Frances was a transgender, and she had gone through the sexual reassignment surgery at 52. And there was one line that she said. It was way back, I think, in 2005 that I first met her. and she told me that if you wear the wrong shoe in the right feet, it's going to hurt. So I came back to my apartment and I tried wearing the wrong shoe in my right feet, and I couldn't really walk. Uh, so I imagined her life, and she had kids from her previous marriage. She used to be a Catholic priest and a choir singer, and she had done her PhD in religion. But she later sued the New York State for discrimination based on gender discrimination and stuff. Anyways, I just admired the courage that she had while she went through her life. She was staying with another cross-dresser called Frankie at the time, and she would call me for dinner sometimes. And the last time I went to her, I carried all these soup cans, and I was moving cities. And she said, anything helps. And I never found her again. I think I tried to look her up on Facebook here and there. I went back to the US to look for her. I couldn't find her. I don't know where she is. Maybe her life got better. That's what we hope for. But in any case, that started the whole journey. A lot of people ask me why I go to brothels, and also who goes to hijra brothels. All I have to say is that normal people do go to hijra brothels, because I think what we see is not what the society is. It's a pity that we can't do these kinds of fascinating stories because of the limitations of the media, of the organizations that we work for. But there are people who are trying to do these stories. There's a writer that I would refer to. His name is William T. Wallman. He actually lived with the prostitutes in their quarters, and they paid his rent, and he only wrote about them. So, so that's how, all I wanted to say basically in this talk, and writers are not very good at talking because they are more used to listening, is that sometimes we have to make that extra effort. We have to fight the systems that are operating. It's not easy because you will be, there are a lot of odds against selling these kinds of stories. I mean, I was tagged as a prostitution reporter. People made fun of me, which was not bad, but nobody was ready to take these stories because they said people didn't want to read these stories. But there was one story that I did, I think 2 years ago, which is called Men According to the Prostitutes, where we looked at what the prostitutes thought about men in general, and the kind of stuff that they talked about. They used a lot of cuss words, and we let the article be as is. I think it did pretty well in terms of page views, but that's not my concern over here. What the concern was that a lot of people started writing to me saying that being a woman, how can you write in graphic details about these topics? And this was not just one email. I got a lot of phone calls. People were very sort of shocked as to how somebody can write about sexuality in such graphic ways. I had people who made fake Twitter profiles called Chinki Sinha for me, which obviously Twitter refused to take off. But all I'm trying to say is that the lives that we see and that we are most comfortable seeing is not what is out there. I think not even as journalists, because that is secondary. I think every one of us should try and maybe go that extra mile to look at things, to look at people, to understand, to maybe share. I mean, I know we all have a set of friends that we are most comfortable with. We go out and we have these certain notions of hanging out in spaces and zones. All I'm trying to say is that it's not that dangerous out there. If I could go, and if I was, I was locked up in a brothel one time, but that was by a police informer, not by the prostitutes. I think it just takes a little bit of leap of faith and maybe a little bit of courage, and to understand. I think otherwise it would all be very boring to live a life which is so cocooned, where we are operating in urban spaces, where we study in great universities or colleges, and then go and take up jobs which will pay us good money, and then do the normal things. I think sometimes if we have to look beyond, it starts to get more interesting. We sometimes talk so much about our own situation in life that, oh, I don't have a job, I don't have a boyfriend, I've had this breakup, nothing is working out. But if you started to look at the tough lives of people, what they lead, I think that would take away from your own sort of the stress that you are having, because your life is nothing in terms of pain compared to what they lead. Abandonment is an emotion which is universal, and yet it is very particular. I think we've all been through it. We all go through it on a daily basis. I think sometimes we want to define it, sometimes we don't want to define it. Also, to define is to limit, as one of my favorite writers said. We don't seek to define anything or maybe to redefine anything. I think we just seek experiences. There's something to experiential living, and I think anyone can go for that kind of living. As a writer, I think I've made my mistakes. I've been tagged as a rogue reporter, or somebody who has not listened to what the statistics say or what the readership reveals. I don't think I believe in any of that. I think I don't write for other people. I think I write for my own self. I think you cannot write for an audience ever, because you don't know what. Once you start to bother about what people like and what people don't like, then there will be no end to it. I think sometimes, I don't think you even know what you want to write, actually. But once you sit and start writing, you are going into other people's lives, and that's how you learn to be responsible with the facts that you have. And there are no categories as fiction or non-fiction, because both of them overlap. So that's all I wanted to say. I do believe in journalism and how people want to write and explore and people want to read. But I think as readers or as writers, I think you could just go a step beyond and look at the fascinating and the painful lives of other people. And maybe, you would gain something out of it. Maybe just an experience, or maybe a greater truth about yourself that probably you didn't know. I don't think I have stumbled upon that truth yet, but the hope remains. But I think as long as you can find people to talk about, and you can find these interesting stories that must be told, I think the purpose of your life, even in a little sense, has been sort of fulfilled. That's all I wanted to say, and thank you for being so patient.